Thanks, Madam Chairman. Secretary Darcy, do you like to fish?
I haven't done much fishing, but the times I have, I've enjoyed it.
Well, you know, lots of Americans do like to fish. We have 900,000 Tennesseans who bought fishing licenses last year. I'm reading John Meacham's book about Thomas Jefferson. He had a passion for fishing. Do you know where they really like to fish?
Oh, I bet it might be Tennessee.
No, well, Tennessee's a good place. It's below the dams. According to Mr. Meacham, he said Thomas Jefferson loved to fish below the dam on the Rivanna River because that's where the fishing's best. So in Tennessee, Tennesseans like to fish below the TVA dams on the Tennessee River and below the Alcoa dams on the Little Tennessee River, and they like to fish on the Tenn core dams on the Cumberland River, but you've stopped them from fishing below the dams. You've done that despite the fact that Ed Carter, director of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, who's chief of boating for 19 years, appointed by the Secretary of Homeland Security on the National Boating Safety Board. He's our top boating safety person in Tennessee, says if there's a lot of water pouring through the spill gates, we can understand the restrictions. Otherwise, our boating accident reports indicate anglers have a good safety record below dams. We don't see a rational reason to prevent them from fishing there. Here's what your lawyer said, your former lawyer, Jerry Martin. He defended you after the Nashville floods, won all the cases. He's President Obama's appointee as the United States Attorney in the Middle District of Tennessee. He said, these waters belong to the citizens. He retired last week. He said, in light of the tremendous protection from liability enjoyed by the Corps, I don't think it's reasonable to the Corps to ban everyone at all times from these public places. If the waters are dangerous only 20% of the time on the Cumberland River, why are you restricting them 100% of the time when you've never done that before? They don't do it. TVA doesn't do it on the Tennessee River. Alcoa doesn't do it on its dams. Isn't that's like putting the railroad crossing down in front of the railroad track 100% of the time. The track's not dangerous if the train's not coming, and the water's not dangerous if the water's not spilling through the dam. Why don't you work with the affected states and come up with an alternate way to do that, as they've offered many, many times, and you've refused to do?
Senator, we have met with your constituents and in both Kentucky as well as Tennessee to talk about options about how to continue to be able to provide a safe place below the dams. Our policy has been that public safety is our #1 concern.
But it hasn't been for the last, you haven't insisted on that for the last 17 years. You've never kept people from fishing below the dams on the Cumberland River, ever.
Not on the Cumberland River, that's correct. But we've had several fatalities, more than 14 fatalities.
But according to the people who are in charge of boating safety in Tennessee and Kentucky, they think the safety record there is no worse than the safety record above the dams. And they've offered to work with you to ensure even more efforts without restricting it 100% of the time.
Senator, we believe that the amount of water coming out of that dam, more than 80% of the time, is a hazard and is dangerous. Well, and that's why we're having the 24/7 regulation. We're also accommodating some of the concerns by having signage and buoys put up at this time, seeing what effect that will have in order to provide for the public.
Well, you're restricting for the first time on the Cumberland River these dams. Let me, I've talked with you and everybody all the way up the line on the Corps of Engineers. The United States Senate has passed a unanimous resolution telling you not to do it. We got 4 United States senators have introduced a Freedom to Fish Act to change it permanently. We've got bipartisan support. Your own lawyer, former lawyer, the U.S. Attorney, says you're being unreasonable. Both the state of Kentucky and Tennessee say you're being unreasonable. We don't need a big brother holding our hands while we're fishing down in Tennessee or Kentucky or any other place. And it's more than fishing. I mean, you're really thumbing your nose at the elected officials of the people of this country. We're Article 1, you're Article 2. You ought to be paying attention to our judgment on this, especially when so many members of Congress of both sides of the aisle have made themselves clear on this. And when you have clear examples with TVA and Alcoa of safe ways to discourage people. I mean, we don't need a government that's big enough to interfere with us when when we have enough sense to get off the train track when the train's coming and to get out of the water the 80% of the time when it's not spilling through the dam. So here's what I'm going to do, and I regret having to do this, but I'm going to do this until I get the attention of the Corps of Engineers. If you're not going to pay attention to the elected representatives of the people of Tennessee and Kentucky and other states, I'm not going to pay attention to your judgment. You've got a large number of accounts in the Corps of Engineers, and often you have to move money from one account to the other in order to do something that in your judgment you want to do. You've got 9 major accounts, 918 project accounts, and in order to move that, you need the permission of the chairman and me in order to do it. You're not going to get my permission. You're going to find it very hard to get my approval for any reprogramming request for the Corps of Engineers anywhere in the country until I get the Corps' attention on this issue in some reasonable attitude. And if that doesn't get your attention, I'm going to work with my colleagues to reduce the programming request down to $1,000. So any reprogramming you'd have to do over $1,000 would have to come back through me, through Senator Feinstein, and through the chairman and ranking member in the House. I regret having to do that, but I'm not going to allow the Court to thumb its nose at the entire United States Senate on an issue that a lot of people in our state care about.
Senator, if I could follow up. My commander made the decision, my district commander made the decision. I fully supported that, and that support was endorsed by Secretary Darcy. We have not had that enforced in that part of the country in the past, and we realized that when the DODIG investigated and found that we were not adhering to our own policies. Complicating that is the number of deaths that occurred, deaths with folks that were wearing life vests, that we cannot predict what is going to happen to them. We can't really predict when it's going to be dangerous. It's clearly going to be most dangerous when the water is flowing. But the main thing was it was a safety issue. We've had examples of deaths. We are not thumbing our nose at the Congress, certainly not to you, sir, and we will continue to work with the local community. What we have done, there was going to be a cable that was going to be put across. We've made a decision to put buoys up and signs up and to try to work with the locals as best we can. They can fish from the banks, but I'm a fisherman, and I still understand the dangers inside that part of the...
Well, Madam Chairman, I'll come back in the second round. They can also fall off the banks, General. And someone did, but I've made my point. I'll come back to it in the second round of questions.
Thank you very much. General, you're new to this. This is a very reasonable member, I think 99.9% of the time. And my strong advice would be to try and work something out with him.